but encouraged her to say more, feeling that if she got it all out on the table, she might sleep better that night. So I responded, "Tell me more, dear." And she soulfully meowed, "Well, I was mingled with the sky. I was comets whizzing here and there. I was suns in heat. Hell, I was the galaxies. But now look, I'm landlocked in fur." To this, I said, "I know exactly what you mean. What to say about conversations between mystics, hmm?" And and this is from the Radiance Sutras. "Go there if you want to find me. Mind, senses, soul, eternity, all are there. Are you there? Enter the bowl of vastness that is the heart. Give yourself to it with total abandon. Quiet ecstasy is there in a steady, regal sense of resting in a perfect spot. Once you know the way, the nature of attention will call you to return again and again, to be saturated with knowing. I belong here. I am at home here." So if you want to close your eyes or soften your gaze, we'll take a moment in silent meditation. When you're ready, please open your eyes. So tonight's selection, by default, looks like it's going to take us straight through to the end of this section into chapter 5. So we'll see what we can make out of these 5 or 6 pages. I didn't want to start with the general practices section, or I didn't want to start at the beginning, but there's a brief recap. So tonight's selection emerges from Roman numeral 2, section A, the main practice. The general practices section, Roman numeral, small Roman numerals 3 on page 137. So here we're talking about one pointed yoga meditation without a base. The key point for resting the mind. So this is the last time that we approach a one-pointed yoga meditation, because, or at least in this context, because now we completely abandon any sort of base. And the subsections are some guiding concepts: resting the weaving a Brahman's thread, resting like weaving a Brahman's thread, which we talked about.
What page are you, Michael? I don't see it on 137. What page are you on?
That's meditation 10, isn't it?
No.
The triple I, where is that?
141 starts on. Yeah, so there's three bases or analogies that are aimed at resting the mind, and we've looked at these. We looked at these last time. Resting like weaving a Brahman's thread, resting like a sheaf of hay after its cord's been cut, resting like a baby looking at a temple, and then resting like an elephant pricked by a thorn. So I'm on 144 now. So we'll pick up on 144, resting like an elephant being pricked by a thorn. There is analysis of the root of stillness and movement, and identifying it through Vipassana, the meditation of yoga without elaboration, in 3 parts on 144. And those 3 parts are analysis of the root of stillness and movement. And there are 2 meditations, which we went through last week. And then a recognition through Vipassana. That's on page 146. And I was excited to see that we've gotten to Vipassana, because knowing the progress of Mahamudra meditation, I figured we were approaching the end once we start doing the inquiry dive in Vipassana. So the yoga of elaboration. We talked about the analysis of 3 times, the past being not, the future mind not born, the present mind not found, and the conclusion that all things are like this. That's page 146. And double I, of things and nothing. There's meditation 23, so we'll pick up there. Meditation 23 basically asks a few questions, since we're doing inquiry, Vipassana inquiry, and this is sort of where it starts. the
I
rest
do
of
want
the
to say that where we left off last time was really at the beginning of meditation 21. We that's where we stopped, at meditation 21. We didn't go into it.
Oh,
I don't know if you're prepared to go into that tonight, but
well, I can read it. 21. So this is good. Recognition through Vipassana, meditation 21. Whatever thoughts or afflictions arise, don't reject them. Without falling under their power, let all things that arise be just what they are, without altering them. Recognize them at the very instant they arise, so that without eliminating them, their arising is naturally purified as emptiness. In this way, you can transform all adverse factors into the path. Now, this is called bringing conditions into the path. Thoughts are liberated simply by recognizing them, which means you've realized the inseparability of the remedy and the remedied. This realization is the essence of the practice of the Vajrayana and is called paradoxical meditation. Exceptional compassion will arise for all beings who have not realized the nature of their own minds. This transcends methods of body, speech, and mind that are practiced for the sake of all beings, such as the generation stage. This wisdom purifies you of all attachments to reality, so there will be no affliction. It's like consuming poisons that have been blessed by mantras. It's taught that with this view of practice, whatever path you follow will be without adoption or rejection. Does anybody have any thoughts on consuming poison that's been blessed by mantras? Is that just the assumption that the poison's been purified and is now an antidote to itself?
yeah, I think that's the point. For each of these three items here, bringing conditions onto the path, the paradoxical meditation, and the liberation through mantra. Each of those is by looking at the dualistic nature of it becomes its liberation. That which is valid becomes invalid, and that which is invalid becomes valid. It's all on the path.
Anybody else have anything to add? So then we talk about the yoga without elaboration. That is in three parts. The analysis of the three times, the analysis of things and nothing, and the analysis of singleness and multiplicity. So the analysis of past, present, and future right. Now we talk about the three times. The meditation is such that you realize that the past mind is not, doesn't exist, or it's destroyed. The future mind is not born, and the present mind is not found. And all things are like this. And Sahara says the arising of things has a nature like space. So when things are eliminated, what can arise afterward? Their nature is primordial birthlessness. Realize today what the Lord Guru has taught. So this elimination refers to what's been destroyed in the meditation. and I think it's the ask what can arise afterward is sort of rhetorical. I think what does arise after these things are eliminated is the true nature. And then the analysis of things and nothing. Meditation 23. The questions, the Vipassana questions are, what is mind? Does it exist or not? And in brief, we find that neither a thing nor nothing so is not non-existent or nothingness. So we avoid the paths of eternalism and nihilism, and through the Guru's instructions we get to tread the path of the middle way, the great middle way. So this keeps striking me when I read this kind of structure, that when we look at a concept and the concept is a negative, a negation, or a description of the thing not existing, that just a recognition of the not existing gives it an existence. So this is where we talk about, he asks, so is not non-existence or nothingness?
There's a conception of something as being a nothing, like a big blank, and we just imagine that big blank and we think that's nothing, but that's actually a thought of a big blank. Yeah. So it's really, no thing is different than that.
Yeah.
It encompasses all things because they don't exist anyway.
Yeah. And so we begin to see the language of the Heart Sutra. That sort of parallelism. And then we
well, isn't this what this particular section is we're looking at the play of the mind, and we're seeing the essence of that play of mind, but it's that play of mind that then can become a trap to us, and we have to go beyond the mind. But to get there, we have to realize that there's this play of the mind. So like Pete just said, we have to let that go. If we're thinking about no thing, then we're thinking about a thing, no thing. So it gets to very, 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 very subtle points of mindlessness. And in this case, it's talking about birthlessness. It uses the word birthlessness in Sarara's quotation, the primordial birthlessness.
And it seems if we can get ourselves on the path of the middle way, it's mentioned that this doesn't come from establishing reasons or gaining certainty through negations. So you don't get there through the logic of Vipassana. It's through the Guru's instructions. And I think that's what it says. That's why it's called the Great Middle Way. So is the middle way are we talking about the path of the middle way? Or are we actually talking about Mahayana?
Generally, they use the phrase Great Middle Way as a specific teaching about emptiness. So it's emptiness as appearance, but not as reality. So at least in the the Rime movement, they talk about the Great Middle Way as being identical with the ultimate view. So it's kind of a but this is earlier than that, so it might not have the same meaning in this text. When they talk about the Great Middle Way in the Rime movement, they really mean it as being identical with the Shentong teaching, but because this is earlier, maybe it doesn't have the same meaning in this text.
I think the term mind is, you can get very subtle with the mind, but it's always sort of dualistic, because if there's a mind, there's an object of mind. There's a subject and an object, which is the basic dualism.
Well, if we're going to talk about what this kind of experience is like, the analogy that's used in Longchenpa and other teachers probably as well is that things are seen as a mirage or as an echo. That means they really appear vividly, but when you look for the source, you won't be able to find it. So their appearance is as real as it always was, but one investigates the nature through Vipassana, one finds nothing.
They call that
Fine.
unfindability, right?
Unfindability of phenomena upon examination is emptiness.
So nothingness is not the same as emptiness, right?
Shit. Sorry for cursing, but in this context, nothingness is generally negated by emptiness. Both existence and non-existence are negated generally during all four, what they call the four extremes, as you well know. So nothingness would be one of the four extremes, so it would be negated as well as existence is negated.
Robert Thurman says something helpful about that. He says there's no such thing as nothing because it's just nothing. It doesn't exist. There's no thing there that's called nothing.
You know, you can't find nothing, no matter how large you look for it.
Yep.
Well, I think the third paragraph in this meditation number 23 really articulates what both of you guys are saying. It says, therefore, as there is neither a thing nor nothing, you will not fall into the paths of eternalism or nihilism. Therefore, this is called the path of the middle way. This does not come from establishing reasons or gaining certainty through negations. It is through the Guru's instructions that you see it clearly, like a jewel in the palm of your hand. This is why it is called the Great Middle Way. So is this an experience? Is what's being said here? Is there is an experience there that we need to be able to experience, and it's through the Guru's guidance that we get there. The question I always have is, where is that Guru? Is that the Guru within? Are we at a space now, a point now, where there's no external Guru at all? It's only the Guru within oneself.
I think at this point you're still talking about the external Guru. I think at least until you get to the first bhumi, you're relying on the external Guru. When you get on the bhumis, then you are relying more on your personal understanding. But before then, I think you need the external Guru. So assuming this is before the first bhumi, and I think it is, we're still talking about the external Guru, in my opinion.
So we'll at least need a Rinpoche, huh?
At this point, until you get to the first bhumi, I've been told, you can't rely on your own opinions. You need to check them with your teacher. Once you get to the first bhumi, things sort of become self-validating. The experiences become self-validating, but before then, no. It's easy to be deceived before then.
Is that the path of seeing, Bernie? The
path of seeing, yeah. Once you get to the path of seeing, you can rely more on your own experiences, but before then, you will have to check what you understand with your teacher. Generally, the biggest problem is people have some sort of powerful experience in meditation, and they combine that with their intellectual understanding, and they think, oh, this must be enlightenment, but really it's just a confabulation of their own mind. And that's basically what the teacher's there to keep you from falling into, or one of the things. So
is it a confabulation? Can a confabulation evolve to a realization?
I don't know. I can't say, but my opinion is probably no. It's basically, it's like a balloon, a bubble that needs to be pricked before you can move further. So it's, well, the analogy, I think our teacher told me, it's like you're driving from here to New York and you see the sign that says New York 300 miles, and you get out and you hug onto the sign instead of staying in your car and keep driving. So you can't take the road sign for actually being in New York.
So the third part of the yoga without elaboration is the analysis of singleness and multiplicity. With meditation 24 on 147, and the inquiry is this mind single or is it multiple? So if it's single, then the word points to multiple. And if the answer is multiple, the question then becomes, how can all these minds be of the same essence? So the conclusion that we're supposed to come to as we dive down is the mind transcends multiple or not multiple. And this is called the completely unlocated Mahamudra. In our meditation, those of us with this realization know only self-knowing. There is nothing else appearing, which is called devoid of appearances. And in post-meditation, when we come back into the world, everything then appears as an illusion if we're doing things right, because the path purifies us of attachment to anything needing to be real. I think we see location used as a concept a little later in this, even in this last chapter. Somebody want to tell me about unlocated Mahamudra? Does it actually have to do with a where?
It's a new expression to me. I've never seen the expression unlocated Mahamudra. So
Well, I think it's another way of expressing, the idea that we are everywhere at one time. Everywhere is within us, within our experience. Saying there's location and time go away. Time becomes meaningless. Location becomes meaningless.
That might be right. You might be right there. I think you might be right there.
Yeah, if something pervades all space, then there's no point in it. So then
there's self-knowing. Let me go back and ask a question. In that second paragraph in the meditation 24, it says in the meditation of the practitioners who have this realization, there is only their own self-knowing. Nothing else appears. How would you describe that self-knowing? What's another way of expressing that?
So this is the very big point of contention in Mahayana Buddhism, whether there's such a thing as the self-aware, self-illuminating mind. I think that's what he's talking about here, just mind resting in its own essence without the experience of anything else except its own essence, seeing everything else as a projection of itself. So that's my guess. Of course, until I get there, I can't be sure, but I think they're referring to the experience where everything is seen as the expression of the mind, and mind is self-illuminating.
So seeing
Yeah.
seeing the suchness of the mind then.
Yeah, I suppose you could call it the suchness of the mind. Yeah.
So at that point then there becomes a self-awareness, and it's the gnosis. It's the 6-year-old kid that goes and touches the hot stove and says, "Oh, that's what a hot stove is."
Yeah.
You see the mind. You say, "Oh, that's what the mind is."
Yeah. The self-illuminating, you see that, at least that level of the mind for the first
Yeah,
time.
and then you say, "Okay, am I going to stay in that suchness, or can I transcend that suchness?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or are we even self-aware? I mean, we're self-aware, but we're not thinking of ourselves as a self. It becomes something that is inexpressible. It's the Mahamudra.
Sure, I assume so.
So I
Well,
think that's what I think is being expressed here. The last sentence in that paragraph, it says, "Therefore, it is called devoid of appearances."
yeah, I mean, I read it as, if you're working your way stepwise towards shedding self-concept or self-consciousness, then there's a point where you get to touch, even for a moment, you get to sit in pure awareness, where there is some sort of knowing, but there's no sense of a knower or a what that's being known. And I mean, would that be a way to describe Mahamudra, the end result of the meditation?
Yeah, I think that's very good. Then in post-meditation period, the next paragraph, it says, "Everything appears as an illusion because this path has been purified them of attachment to anything as being real." So now we're coming back, we're re-examining things as a human being, as an ordinary human being, but we're coming with the realization, oh, the stove is hot and I know it's hot. Oh, the mind is limited and I know it's limited. I've experienced its limitation. But I've also, to do that, I had to go beyond what we call mind. I have no words for it. This was the experience of Shakyamuni Buddha after he became enlightened, and he paced up and down for 2 weeks before he started going to Sarnath with his 5 disciples following him around. "Oh, please teach us, teach us, teach us." And he didn't know what to say.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can all get the idea that appearance, is emptiness. Emptiness is appearances, and so appearances are an illusion, and we can get with that, but we still have an attachment to wanting something to be real. I mean, I think that's that turning point in humanity, or at least in those of us that aren't realized, is that we can logically understand that everything that we are understanding, everything that we touch, everything that we feel, is just the story, and it's empty of its own essence, and and that we're empty, but we really want something to be able to grasp onto. And so this path that purifies us, the attachment to needing anything to be real, once that occurs, then everything that's sensed, everything that's seen, illusion or otherwise, has the same value, because it's all just the same taste. That's sort of what I see, and we get to taste later, which I like.
I feel that there's some type of ultimate reality, but by the word reality, I don't mean a thing that we say, point to it and say this is reality, but simply a trueness of how things really are, which is like omniscience of a Buddha. And it's not located in one space or time. It encompasses everyone and everything, and yet it's also completely empty.
Yeah, the statement here is that anything needing to be real, and I think once I imagine what needing something to be real, I'm automatically in dual thinking. I'm automatically thinking that it's something else, that I want to be something else. It's a value judgment. And I know Lance has talked about actual versus real, and and conditional realness, and I don't know.
Well, everything we process is three-dimensional. We're three-dimensional beings. But that doesn't mean that we're not surrounded by all-pervading reality that is multidimensional. But we don't recognize it. We may experience it in some way, but the way we experience it, we try and relate it back to our three-dimensional being.
Well, that's relative versus absolute. If we're trying to look for facts and truths, but I think that's samsara. I don't think we can get out of that. That's the idea of being able to escape that means you're pretty much a Buddha on earth, or a bodhisattva that just keeps skipping in and out of Buddhahood.
Well, isn't that what we're trying to do? Isn't that what Mahamudra is all about?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where are we exactly in the text?
We're we're about to move into section Roman numeral 2, special practices, page 148.
So just to put a fine point now on what we were just talking about. Sorry, I'm flipping through several pages here. Now it says Saraha's quote, where it says, "Lord, someone like me." So you want to read that?
Lord, someone like me has today cut through delusion. So it doesn't matter what I see in front, behind, or in the 10 directions. I no longer have a question for anyone.
So the question then is, why?
Why no longer?
Why do I have no question for anyone?
Because I cut through delusion. Me and my fierce deities.
My experience, my realization, whatever you want to call it, has cut through all of that. Nobody can explain it any further than my own experience. That's how I would say it.
If you realize the nature of mind, you don't need anything else. You don't need to ask any questions.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Bernie, what do you think about that? Pete, what do you think about that?
I agree. It's like an experience, but it's beyond even something you would label as an experience because it's non-dual.
Yeah, I think what all I can add here is I think this is the level of the path of seeing the first booming. This experience right here is pretty much identical with the experience of the first booming. Could be wrong, but that's what I think right now.
Yeah, that makes sense given the position of this quote in this chapter. I mean, we're about to touch nirvana in a page and a half or so, or 2 pages. So we've moved from general practices to the special practices, and now page 148 in 2 parts. And the parts are the yoga of one taste, the equal taste of all phenomena as the inseparability of mind and appearances. And the second part, the yoga of non-meditation, the certainty that all phenomena are natural, innate, dharmakaya. So looking at number 1, the yoga of one taste, there are 3 parts. Recognizing appearances as mind through the example of a dream. So these are the 3 sort of mental techniques. Recognizing the unity of appearances and emptiness through the example of water and ice. And gaining certainty in the equal taste of all phenomena through the example of water and waves. And before we jump into the first one, I'd like to hear what you folks might have to say about why the choice of taste as a representation of our senses and sensibilities. Does it give the does it suggest that taste is the rawest, the most immediate, the least intermediated sort of sensation? Doesn't take a lot of thought to taste.
It's non-conceptual. Like when you hear something, we can sort of form concepts about it. We see something, we form concepts, but taste is just there.
Well, I always thought, but I never had this thought confirmed, that it's referring to the taste of salt water. That when you go to the ocean and you have a taste of what the water is like in the ocean, you not only know the taste of the water in the spot you're at, you know the taste of all the water all over the world. All the water all over the world is exactly the same taste as the water that you're tasting now. So
would that be the taste of the amniotic sac?
I've got no idea. That's a new idea for me, Lance. The amniotic sac, I got no idea what that tastes like.
In the long
Well,
term,
you spent 9 months there. Why not?
My memory doesn't reach back earlier than my 2nd year.
Well, that's the point.
The earliest memory I have is when I was 2 years old, and my mother was carrying my little brother down the steps.
Well, that's my point, and the fact that we've been there many times.
Yeah, I mean, we carry our ocean with us because not only our blood, but all of our fluids or most of our fluids are alkaline, or they're supposed to be. Yeah,
salty,
slightly. Yes.
Yeah. So not only are we carrying the ocean in our veins, but our reproductive, the female of the species recreates an ocean for the kids to evolve into. So that makes good sense. You read about how our ancestors, moved out of the ocean. They really did have to pack their ocean, and they had to pack their environment with them, just like we have to pack our air if we're going to be going underwater, and especially if we're going to be going into space. So that must have been an amazing experience for creatures that really had not much to think about that experience. That's just a sort of an indication as to the wisdom that pervades the universe, in that you know, that evolution, that sort of adjustment over eons and eons, can make it so that you know, after all of this time, that we're carrying our ocean with us. And but the first ones that crawled out of the first creatures to crawl out of the oceans had to go back in. You know, they were basically holding their breath, and then after a while, they got to you know, they got to make some adjustments in their gills and store some air and some water, and it was just it just sounds like too amazing to happen by
random
you know,
chance.
by I mean, it's just, there's got to be some pretty serious wisdom that's entailed in that, and I think that's why it's suggested that the human species is, you know, it's very possible, you know, one of a kind. I mean, there's what, 92 billion galaxies theoretically in the universe, and 90 some billion solar systems in our galaxy. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. So there's lots of potential for Goldilocks zones out there, but to have all of the causes and conditions that bring us to this point together at this point, that's really a great example of this precious human life. The chances are almost zero that we should be here. Anyway, so the
this,
special. Go
the
ahead.
taste of one taste is a taste of your own blood, then. Okay.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, the first time I heard one taste was Shanti Deva, and so that sort of analogy, or that thought tool existed for him to use, I guess.
I've encountered this metaphor in one of the sadhanas, the Vajrayogini sadhana, where he was saying that her body symbolizes that all dharmas are of one taste. This is kind of like what I'm thinking of when I'm reading this. So I guess, is the deity sadhana experienced in that same way, that the body of the deity is, you know, the inseparability of mind and appearances?
Well, yeah. It's a story. It's an analogy, you know, for us to be able to put our dualistic minds around our ordinary human minds, that leads us to something that goes beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Vajrayogini drinks a blood from a skull cup, and it tastes like nectar.
Right.
It's pure nectar. Everything the realized beings experience is pure nectar and perfect.
So everything is of one taste. Yep.
It's the one taste of bliss.
Think it's bliss? You think everything is blissful at this point?
Well,
there's no more suffering experienced?
Yeah.
I mean, even without valence, you know, from at a quantum level, everything really is everything.
Well, I think the what is it? The skull, the cup that Vajrayogini holds, filled with blood and other human body parts, if I'm correct. It's also transforming any other like obstacles, I guess, or that is kind of like a sacrifice of like your own self, of the self, right? And transformation of the self, right?
Yeah.
and offering.
Yeah, because the enlightened beings don't cling to their self. Everybody's the same. You know, everyone's the same nature, and everyone. That's why the compassion is completely. It's not fabricated compassion that they have to choice. Should I do this or do that? It's just naturally complete compassion because of that recognition of the sameness of all beings.
Well, I think this part of the conversation started when Bernie said, you know, is there suffering in this? You know, to paraphrase him, you know, and I think that at this point, when, you know, figuratively we're on the cushion, we're in this meditative experience, and we're going through, you know, this, and we may be having clear moments of clarity, of emptiness, of Mahamudra, but it's not stable. And then the suffering comes in when we have to get up off the cushion and we realize, oh, I'm a human being again. You know, that's my nature at this point in, you know, where I am right now. But there is this more subtle nature, this yoga nature that I have, that is the bliss. And the point is to be able to bring that suffering, see that suffering is just part of our relative nature that is that can be that is brought onto the path, and we don't have to abide by that.
Bob Thurman says something very interesting about that, which is that you know how the bodhisattvas will donate an eyeball or something and pull it out of their head, you know, and we're thinking, man, these guys are crazy, you know, they're torturing themselves. What he said was that for these you know, bodhisattvas on the boomies, that their channels, and I mean all their channels, 72,000 channels and so forth, are so clear and pure that no matter what they experience, it's blissful. So that for
Really?
them, donating their leg or something or their hand is blissful. You know, you know, though we can't comprehend that, but that's how they experience it.
But is that a figurative thing, saying that the
No, it's
bodhisattva was taking
literal.
out his eye, or is it so literal? What good is it for any human being to take their eyeball out and give it to somebody 2,000 years ago? What are they going to do with it? They can't
Right.
use it.
But they did it. They did it out of just generosity. They said, someone said, I want your eye. So they just hand them their eye, you know?
I think it's figurative.
Probably figurative. But the original story is the story of Prince Visantra and the Jatakas. So he donated his eyeball, but then he got his sight restored. So it was his act of that was considered the act of supreme generosity. But anyway, I think you can't say that they're beyond suffering at this point, because karma continues up to and including Buddhahood. So if there's good karma, there's also negative karma, and negative karma is going to be experienced as some level of suffering, I would think.
But within each of these meditations, can't there be a period of lucidness, of clarity, of seeing, of Mahamudra?
Sure, I think when the bodhisattvas are in
blissful.
meditation, they're not experiencing any kind of suffering.
But then when it's over, you're going
when
to
it's over, they're going to
meditation,
be experiencing.
then you can
it at
fall
some
backward. Yes.
I mean, maybe the suffering is just their compassion for sentient beings as well. That could be experienced as a kind of suffering when they see other living beings suffering as well. So there's that level of suffering as well. So,
Well, that's an interesting question. Was Avalokiteshvara suffering when he cried the tears of Tara and Prakriti?
I think he would have to be at some level. At some level. But
speaking as a human being, we would say that.
I'll tell you when I'm at the eighth bhumi. I'll tell you when I'm an eighth bhumi what it's like.
So
I'm nowhere near that yet.
So I think without compassion, the antidote to suffering is pure wisdom. But that doesn't happen on our world. That doesn't happen in samsara. because we have reason to be compassionate. But I think if you're at some sort of stage where you understand all of the, you understand exactly why there's things like pain and things that cause pain. You understand it to be the sort of natural flow, and that you understand that there's no harm, there's no foul. It's just reacting to the. It's just our conditioning that has us feeling things as negative and positive things, that wanting to grasp or being averse to. I think that sort of stuff disappears at one of the other boomies, right? That your tendency to push things away or to hold things close is no longer a driving force.
Well, I
right?
think what you just said is what we talked about in meditation number 21, was about the conditions.
Cool.
So this guide that we have here is a successive guide, and each of these meditations is building up on the other. If we need to loop back to a prior meditation to be able to understand the one that we're talking about, we should do that. There's no harm in that. That's good, and that's part of what we're learning about. That there is this system here by which we can understand the Mahamudra mind.
Yeah. This manual just blows IKEA out of the water. So then, so moving to the special practices, the two parts we talked about: the yoga of one taste, the equal taste of all phenomena, as the inseparability of mind and appearances happens in three parts: recognizing appearances as the mind through the example of a dream, water and ice, and water and waves. So recognizing appearances as mind through the example of a dream, meditation 25 basically states, during sleep, all appearances are only the mind. I don't think we need to argue about that. In the same way, all present appearances are also the dreams of an ignorant sleep. Does anybody want to say something about an ignorant sleep? Is there, would not it happen in an informed sleep, or what might be a better adjective?
Ignorant here just means ignorant of the true nature of the phenomenon. That's what they mean here.
Right.
If they appear as real and having their own existence, then that would be considered ignorance.
Right. And the appearances are only no other than the mind. So the recommendation, the practice is, if we relax on whatever appears, the external object and one's own mind become blended indivisibly into one taste. So that's in a perfect world, under the right situation, circumstances, and conditions. And B, the second part of yoga of one taste, recognizing the unity of appearances and emptiness through the example of water and salt, was it?
Ice.
Water and ice.
Ice. Oh yeah. I know. This is the second time I typed salt. All right. All phenomena that arise in experience have no existent essence at the moment they appear, so we call them empty. Given that they appear as anything whatsoever. So are the union of appearance and emptiness, or the one taste, like water and ice, for example. Knowing in the same way the unions of emptiness and bliss, emptiness and clarity, and emptiness and knowing, is called the realization of the one taste of many.
Where are you again? From the book?
That's page meditation 28.
26.
6.
Oh, 26. Yes, sorry. I should be wearing my glasses. So that's page 149. So this is a pretty advanced being. This is less and less conceptual.
Yeah, well, generally these experiences of bliss, clarity, and thought, not knowing, and are considered the hallmarks of meditation. So what it's saying here, I think, is not only you're transcending outer appearances, you're also transcending the inner experiences of meditation, and they are being seen as empty as well.
Mm-hmm. Good point. So gaining certainty in the equal taste of all phenomena through the example of water and waves leads to meditation 27, which I'll go ahead and read. Waves arise from water. In the same way, all phenomena are created by the nature of your mind, which is emptiness, acting as every kind of appearance. Saraha has taught the realization, while being manifested from the mind, have the nature of the Lord.
The mind. The mind? Oh, that's right, of the Lord, right. Okay. Really?
So the single true nature pervades the entire expanse of phenomena, I think is what's suggested. And it's called the one taste arising as many. So for those who realize this, subsequent knowledge arises as all pervading emptiness.
So I hear so I think that quotation there that Saraha is saying, while being manifested from the mind. So it's coming from our mind, from our ordinary human mind. But have the nature, have that heart nature, have that true nature of the Lord, which in this case would be Buddha.
Right.
So although it's coming from our mind, to experience it or to be able to process it as Buddha.
Yeah.
So I made myself a note, I said that, it's like the multiplicity of the single.
So then
and I was looking at it also as light. At this point, there what we were talking about in meditation 26 was more about matter, was about solid matter. And meditation 27, to me, brought on energy, that we were talking about energy. So this is the way we experience things, in the Buddha mind, it may be quite different, but nevertheless, we can examine it through, the theory of relativity.
So then we move from the yoga of one taste to the yoga of non-meditation, which is the certainty that all phenomena are natural, innate dharmakaya. And the meditation 28 wraps that up. Basically, as the afflictions requiring treatments are ceased, we're on page 350, The remedies also cease and the path ends. There's nowhere to go. You've reached the height, the unlocated nirvana, the supreme city of Mahamudra. And from the blending teaching of Tilopa, I don't know how to pronounce that. Kacho, huh?
Kyeho.
Kyeho. This
Kyeho.
is self-knowing wisdom. It transcends the path of speech. It cannot be experienced by the mind. I, Tilopa, have nothing to teach. Know that it is revealed to you by yourself. It's also the meaning of this. I'm sorry. Bernie?
Justin, Kyeho is kind of like wow. So
Yeah.
if you didn't know, okay.
Keho. Well, I thought it was holy shit, but
Same thing, I guess. That's yes.
or a F-bomb exclamation mark. So it's also the meaning of this teaching by Tilopa, which in part I have posted on my wall at work, that Lance gave us these different do
Six
not
words
by
of
Tilopa.
advice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do not contemplate. Do
do
not
not.
think. Do not analyze. Do not meditate. Do not meditate, but rest naturally.
How would you define mentate?
Think.
What was that?
Yeah.
They all mean
Think.
think. They all mean
Think.
Well, there's one that says think.
Oh, yeah.
I've been told that the words in Sanskrit are more or less, they're very close to meaning to all one another. So there are various commentaries on these, but all the words more or less mean to think. So
Mentate means to use the meditation, to actualize the meditation, to control.
yeah, well,
Right,
the
so-
way it was explained to me is that it refers to thinking of the three times, past, present, and future. So
Well,
that's what I remember.
Well, mentate it's basically the action of the mind. So it's saying don't let the mind touch anything. Don't let the mind do its work.
Don't let it conceptualize.
Mm.
so this
Yeah.
goes back to my point earlier, and the one I make all the time about, I, Tilopa, have nothing to teach. Know that it is revealed to you by yourself.
That's true.
You
At a
know,
certain
that
point.
you get to that point where you're just completely naked. There's no body, there's no mind, there's no speech. All that you have is your own guru. What we refer to as the guru, the all-knowing one, the omnipresent one, whatever. All the different epithets then all come together within yourself.
Well, it makes perfect sense because we're responsible for hiding it all from ourselves, or maintaining that delusion, although conditioning helps. But so here we approach the conclusion in three parts. First part is the recognition, direct introduction to Mahamudra. The second part is analysis of obstacles and errors. And third part is distinguishing comprehension, experience, and realization. So for A, here's the meditation 29 on 151. The four yogas that manifest the results are gaining certainty in the basis, practicing the path, distinguishing the details of experiences, distinguishing the signs of heat on the paths and the stages. So I probably knew at one time, but the basis is probably the only thing we're supposed to be certain about, right? And how would you describe the basis?
One-pointed mindfulness.
Uh-huh. And when we're talking about signs of heat, the heat means a reactivity or an interaction, a friction.
Well, it's non-meditation. It's the signs of
So,
the
okay.
heat on the path and the stages, and it just becomes a non-meditation. It becomes it's not a thoughtful process at that point.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, the analogy is heat is like the dawning of wisdom is like the relationship between heat and fire. Heat is similar to fire, but is not the same as fire. So the first experience of wisdom is sort of like heat, and the ultimate realization is like fire.
Also, I think gaining certainty in the basis could refer to the ground, what they call the ground Mahamudra,
Yeah,
which is the Buddha nature.
right.
Mm.
Having a direct experience of Buddha nature rather than understanding it as an idea.
Hmm.
So you can look at the 4 yogas of Gampopa and compare this to that too. So there's all these different, intersecting, studies that help us to understand this. So gaining certainty in the basis is like allowing the mind to become one with the Dharma, realizing that there is that we have a mind and that there is a Dharma, there is a way to have the mind experience itself. Practicing the path, that the Dharma proceed along a path, that there is this process that is spelled out for us, helps us do it. We do it ourselves, but we call it, the architecture of our life, what we thought it was. But now we're at a point now where we've kind of given all that up, and we say, oh, now I'm going to follow the teachings of the Buddha, because his teaching is much better than the one that I was trying to deal with for the past 70 years. And then the next one, distinguishing the details of experiences. Distinguishing the details of experiences is like, may the path that we're on, the Dharma, dispel confusion. That we begin to differentiate, that we have the wisdom of discriminating wisdom, etc. The details of experience. And that on those details of experience are the one taste. It's all the same.
Yeah.
And then finally, the 4th one, distinguishing the signs of heat, is may that confusion that I experience as one taste, that I see as one taste, may it dawn as wisdom. Those are the 4 yogas of Gampopa.
So that was a recap of the recognition, direct introduction to the Mahamudra. And next section is an analysis of the obstacles and the errors with the meditation 30 on page 151. Knowing that appearances are mind eliminates the obstacle of appearances arising as enemies. Knowing that thoughts are the Dharmakaya eliminates the obstacle of thoughts arising as enemies. Knowing the union of appearances, of appearance and emptiness eliminates the obstacle of emptiness arising as an enemy. The 3 errors are attachment to the experience of samatha, and enchanting Vipassana eliminates them. Enhancing Vipassana eliminates them. The four mistakes are mistakes concerning the nature of emptiness. Taking up emptiness as compassion eradicates them. The correct realization of the way things are eradicates mistakes in feeling. The inseparability of the remedy and the remedied eradicates mistakes in remedy. The realization of the simultaneity of arising and liberation brings to an end the mistakes of the path. So these are obstacles to successful a successful Mahamudra meditation. And the errors, I don't know, what are the three errors? Does anybody know those?
Delusion, aversion, and attachment.
Uh-huh. And the four mistakes concerning the nature of emptiness.
Don't know.
Well, I think that I spent a lot of time thinking about this, contemplating, looking things up, cross-referencing, and so on. But I think it was from the last time we talked about this, or the time before, it was either Peter or Bernie brought up the Shangpa tradition, so close you can't see it, so profound you can't fathom it, so simple you can't believe it, so fine you can't accept it. So these are the four mistakes: to not realize the nature of Mahamudra mind.
Yeah, but I agree with that, except it says that the remedy is compassion. So it seems to me to fall into the problem of not seeing other beings as real, and therefore their suffering isn't real, just from the text right here. But that isn't four things, but that's what I get from here, because you would lose that sense of compassion if everything is seen as illusory. So you have
I don't
to,
think so. I think, and I think that taking up emptiness as compassion eradicates them. That's one step. That's one step.
So anyway, I thought that's what I assumed when they talked about it here. But I have no idea what they mean by four mistakes. But it seems to me you can fall to the extreme of too much emptiness or too much compassion. Too much compassion is taking everything as real, and too much emptiness is taking everything as unreal. And therefore, there's no need for compassion. Everything is already liberated, so there's no need to liberate anyone. So anyway, that's what I took from that.
Well, I'm sure that there's books written about this, and there's been many studies over the
I'm
centuries.
sure there are. I don't know where they are.
But my takeaway from it, my final takeaway is there's no mistakes. When you're on the path, there are no mistakes. The path, if there's a mistake, it's to leave the path.
Yeah, sure. As long as you keep traveling, you'll eventually get there. So
yeah, it states again, the realization of the simultaneity of arising and liberation brings to an end the mistakes of the path.
And that's my point. There are no mistakes.
Yeah. And then finally, distinguishing comprehension, experience, and realization. Meditation 31. Comprehension is the realization gained through hearing about and contemplating the nature of the mind. Experience is one-pointed general realization. Realization is direct realization from the level of freedom from conceptual elaboration upward. As the same word is used for all of them, there is nothing wrong in calling them all realization. So this answers some questions for me. So there's definitely some levels of realization that we can call realization. So we can experience realizations as we are today under the right circumstances. So that anybody want to say anything else before we go to the coda? I probably don't have to read the coda, but
Okay, no.
I just want to emphasize that these 31 meditations are a sequential meditation path for us to be able to really fathom, to become, recognize, work with the Mahamudra mind. You know, to be able to get to the Mahamudra mind, which is beyond our ordinary human mind. So if we can use that, you know, saying that Mahamudra is the mind of the meditation, beyond the human mind. And that using this as a framework over and over and over again for what might be the rest of our lives this is priceless.
and as Curtis pointed out, it's just genius the way that it was set up as an extended outline, because it really is step by step by step, down and up through all the layers, with nothing really left out. You know, every idea that was brought up was discussed and woven into things and analyzed, and it's an amazing description of how to build a wise being. So thank you, Curtis, for insisting back then of putting the outline structure there, because that made a lot of sense to me. Whereas the first few sections were kind of I didn't know where the writer was going, but to be able to see how the information was nested and the hierarchy of the content was illuminating.
I like the coda. I decided at the beginning when I presented about how he claims his authority.
Yeah. So I'll read it.
It's a colophon. It's not a coda. It's a colophon.
If it's music, it's a coda. So it's all a song or a story. Shenpen Sangpo, the king of Zanskar in Kashmir, offered me one loaf of saffron blossoms and asked me to write a record of instructions for both the Mahamudra and the 6 dharmas. I have never found anything reliable among the many manuscript records of the oral tradition. I, Pemakarpo, while staying in the Bodh Gaya of the southern land of Karchu, completed this text solely in order to benefit future times. May goodness result from this.
Very Gampopa. You know,
a freaking load of saffron blossoms.
It's so.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Dashi Dile.
Amazing section. Okay.
It comes back to who he was. You know, when I presented his bio, this guy has an incredible reputation. So when he writes, you know, I've never had anything done it right. I'm going to do it now. You know, he can do that. That's who he was. You know, he accomplished something that's lasted, like Gampopa has lasted. It's studied across the lineages because it's so good.
Yeah. And what's the value of it? I don't know. I don't know what it was. It a wagon load of saffron blossoms or a, you know, or a DC-10 load or whatever. I know saffron has always been cherished and really valuable, but obviously his writing, it's interesting him creating that sort of equating some precious yellow flowers to the product. Great. Shall we do a dedication, or
Yeah, I guess.
Lance, do you have anything to add to wrap this
No,
section out?
I assume the next meeting's 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks. From now?
Yeah, and I think Pete is on for the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
So the next one would be the 18th.
Okay.
By the virtues collected in the three times,
Times by
by
myself.
myself and all beings,
all
in
beings,
samsara and nirvana,
and Nirvana.
and by the innate word
By
of
the innate
virtue,
word of virtue.
may I and all
May I and
sentient
all
beings
sentient beings
quickly attain
quickly attain
unsurpassed,
unsurpassed,
perfect, complete,
perfect, complete,
and precious
and precious
enlightenment.
enlightenment.
May the teachings of the great
Teachings of the
Trungpa,
great Trungpa
Ratnashri,
Ratnashri,
and other
Who is
great
omniscient.
masters of interdependence continue and increase
increase
Study.
through study of practice, through the study, practice, contemplation, and
and
meditation.
meditation until the end of
Until the end of
samsara.
Om.
Om.
Ah.
Ah.
Om.
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 Ah.
Ah.
Om.
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 Ah.
Ah.
Om.
Om.
May my
And
body,
my body,
speech,
speech,
and mind
and mind
become
become
inseparable
inseparable
from the body,
from the body,
speech,
speech,
and mind
and mind
of all the
of
enlightened
all the
ones
enlightened ones,
for the benefit of all
benefit of
sentient
all
beings.
sentient beings.
Really good. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you, Michael. That was very good. Curtis, thank you. Everybody's comments, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So the next one is chapter 5 or section 5, and Pete starts with that, right?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Thanks, guys.
Okay. See you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Ciao.
Good night,
Ciao.
friend.
Keep
Peace.
getting better, Lance.
Oh, thank you. I will. I'll keep doing my exercises.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I hope you're
Yes.
getting better.
All right. Cheery. Bye-bye.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.